Today, Hellboy, Sword of Storms, 2006. Do you remember DVDs? Do you even remember when Hellboy got one of the biggest media pushes of our time? Do you remember when Hellboy was a success? It got a sequel, and then it fizzled away. Well, we have a lot to dissect about this animated straight-to-DVD movie. It's good. It's great. I think it defines Hellboy way more than what we saw with the Guillermo del Toro movies. And the reason for that is it's cheaper to draw than it is to put onto live action screens. You can draw anything, and it's the same budget. Think about that. AKAPADers, it's the weekend, so it's time for animation and cartoons. Let's go.
Camera speed, sound production, take one.
Action!
Welcome back, my AKAPADers. There's a level of enthusiasm in my voice, and the reason for that is watching this. We have a solid like A, B, C, and D plot. We're embedded in Japanese mythology. I believe the same story or the folktale that Hellboy Sword of Storms is based on. For my YouTube channel, did a Stain Sakai, the creator of Usagi Yojimbo. He was a part of this like anthology series, and he did a very similar story. So maybe it's one of the like the most well-known, or like, you know, maybe like for German fairy tales, maybe it's like a Snow White. But I've seen this folktale adapted before. It's based on Hellboy. Hellboy is created by Mike Mignola. We've been going hard into everything Hellboy, and we're reverse dissecting. So if you go through the feed of this podcast, you'll see an earlier episode where I declare the end of the Hellboy franchise. Two failed lower budgeted movies. That fourth movie, The Crooked Man, is essentially it's an art house experimentation, even though I even felt like that in tone was very close to the comic book. But we see the possibilities of this character on screen with animation. We don't see it with live action. These movies have been in my queue, and there's two of these animated movies. One is, of course, the one we're discussing, Hellboy, Sword of Stones, and the other one is Blood and Iron. Blood and Iron you can expect next weekend, next Saturday. And then between that time, we'll do Hellboy and Hellboy, the Golden Army. There's this expansion of the Guillermo del Toro Hellboy universe where we have better supporting characters. Abe Sapien goes on this side adventure that is so, like, he's swimming underwater. There's a giant, like, kraken-like creature. Liz, who's our, like, fire goddess, and she opens the movie. But this movie gives every single one of these characters and their separate power sets moments. That's very difficult to do with the time constraints. So we roughly have an hour plus. Like, I believe these run for an hour, 10 minutes. So, like, for American television, it could be like 3-ish animated episodes. For here, it's a solid DVD. I view this as a good value. I believe they retailed for $15 to $20 back in the day, and I'm sure there were special features attached. But Hellboy has his side quests, and everything comes together at the end. There's a bigger, larger, complex story. We have ghosts. We have water goblins and water demons. One of them has almost like a cup. He's like this. It's so hard to describe. It's like this green bamboo-looking monkey creature with a cup on his head. And he's full of water, and he's like this river demon. And the way you defeat him is you gotta get him out of the river, out of the water, and you gotta turn him upside down and shake all the water out of him, and then he shrivels up. But before he shrivels up, since you defeated him, he will answer any and all of your questions. So he's like, like almost like eroding away. he's turning into a prune, and Hellboy is just rushing to ask him these questions because, yeah, of course, in the Zero moment, it's explained to him how some of this works, and that's the MacGuffin stuff. Is always an interesting aspect of some of these Hellboy stories where he's on the quest and he encounters a creature of mythology, so it somewhat grounds it in reality. And then in like the final moments, someone tells him how to defeat it or what happens when he defeats it, but he's never told any of this in advance. And that's a little bit of this blue collar aspect that we fully get in this version of Hellboy. The blue collar aspect of Hellboy is he's showing up to do an effing job. He's not there to save the world. It doesn't even have the comprehension for that. He's just there to get the job done. That aspect makes him completely unique in American fiction. With all of that, AKAPAD, Hellboy needs to have his own animated anything at this point. I think it's the only thing that can save the franchise. This whole movie is designed by a guy named Jeff Matsuda. Now, I tried to look up what Jeff Matsuda's been working on recently. I haven't had much luck. He used to be prominent on social media. He had like a great website, a great blog at one point. I believe all that is down. He had an SSL certificate error for his personal website. Not good there. That's $100 fix. Depending on your platform, it could be free. I think most of them are even free now. But Jeff Matsuda has a drawing style that derives from the 90s comic book boom. I don't want to get too far into that. But he's an individual, and you guys know I'm a comic book guy. I've known about Jeff. I've seen his career blossom from the early pages of fan art in Wizard magazine. And I've seen him expand. He drew a Wolverine run where it was like maybe the last great time Wolverine was in space. I'll just leave that there. But his animation, like he has an animation variation of his comic book style. Now, his comic book style was boiling into what we see here, but it also fits the style Mike Mignola, as some of you like to say, the creator of Hellboy. So there's a tonal handshake between this animated series or this animated movie and the next one and the Hellboy comic book itself. I think that's right there is a triumph. The extension of the plots, AKAPAD, we're dealing with ghosts, we're dealing with regret, we're dealing with a moment in time that is centuries old, and all this truth and reconciliation and regret gets trapped into a sword, and the movie begins with this like Japanese curator who gets possessed by it all, and that's almost like the A plot, and we see him wonderfully designed, wonderful transformations too for this character, but he's in these alleys and he's trying to orchestrate everything. And then we get the Hellboy team, and they split up, and each one of those has again like an A plot and a B plot. I don't like using the terms A plot and B plot, by the way, but I just think it helps narrow down visually what we're doing from time to time. I love it when this is almost a successful version. If you just need like a quick comparison, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, where they split that team up, and the team is split up for far too long, and it could be because we're in a 2-hour plus format for a live action feature with a way bigger budget. But we want to see the team eventually come back together soon. But when we split up a team, we can highlight them. We can highlight some of the relationships, some of the banter, some of the back and forths. There's comedic moments. There's comedic moments here between Liz and Abe Sapien. But in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, if we are to just compare some of the subliminal things that happen when we watch movies, it's too much time. In this, because it's animated and because we're down to 1 hour, everyone is separated at just enough time, and we get the resolution. Boom, we're done, and we're moving on. I think this is a clear pitch to how to bring Hellboy back. I think I caught this on Plex. I found it on my Amazon Echo TV Cube box thing. If you just search Hellboy, you get all the movies. You get the animation at the end of the scroll, but then you're jumped to Plex. So these are available on Plex. I believe Plex is a completely free stream platform with ads. Not a big deal. I think there was only 2 or 3 ad rolls throughout, including beginning and end. So it's very tolerable. This and Blood and Iron are both available for free on Plex. I implore all of you to check this out just for the artistry and the idea that that animation should always, like, when we have something like this to quickly compare to what the live action counterpart is doing, the work that the live action needs to do to what can be done with a blank piece of paper. If you need to draw a giant kraken coming out from the ocean, and you need that kraken to be set on fire by another character who's also engulfed in fire, controlling the flame, you can draw it, and that's the same cost as drawing anything else. This is that, a little bit of, it's that definition, but it also reveals some of the frustration what we see when animation doesn't do this. And around this time, like, everything was still compared to Spawn, the animated series on HBO, because people just wanted blood, boobs, and violence. A lot of people were frustrated with that Spawn HBO show because it didn't lean into the illustrative elements of the medium, which is animation. I think this is largely underrated. Now, going back to Jeff Matsuda, we also previously on the 31 Days of Dread, I think we're going back to 2 seasons of the 31 Days of Dread now. 31 Days of Dread is my annual October event where we do 1 horror movie a day for the entire month of October. For the 31 Days of Dread, we did Dracula, Batman, and which is also a nod to the very early encounter. Like, it's the Dracula Batman. No, it's not a nod. It's a nod to the 1960s Batman animated series, because Andy Warhol, I think at one time, was making a Batman versus Dracula movie, which is astounding. There has to be footage of that somewhere. And Jeff Matsuda was the team that finally made that encounter happen. So they, again, they did a DVD. That's a fantastic movie. Jeff Matsuda, like, stemming from this, his time in animation, becomes a decent animation, like, guru and guy, to where we can argue that his animation contributions to the world and to the culture far overcome anything he did in American comics. It's fun to see the arc. I love his style. I think when we're watching animation, I think the character designer is largely underrated. But it's hard to highlight individual talent, so we kind of all go towards our taste and what we feel is important. But we did discuss Jeff before. Feel free to check out that episode as well if you want a little bit more detail in the way he can stretch his arms in 15 years, essentially, from this point. All right, AKAPADers. It's animation weekend. I love you guys. I love hanging out. Get yourself a bowl of cereal and have some fun. Let's go.
Okay, that's a wrap.